thank you for inviting me in this fantastic workshop focusing on digital library. And I would like to talk about the IIIF, the International Image Interoperability Framework, particularly focusing on our experience, the experience of the Vatican Library.
Perfect, ma'am. So I'll just briefly introduce you to all our participants, and then of course you can take over and start your presentation. So Dr. Manoni is the head of coordination of IT services at the Biblioteca Apolistica Vaticana. Her research and work areas focus on metadata, digital libraries, interoperability protocols, and long-term preservation for cultural heritage. Paola is deeply involved in international standardization processes. She is also the president of the UNI Technical Committee on Documentation and Information. So largely, as I mentioned at the beginning of today, we hope to get a very nuanced understanding of the Vatican system and what they do in their library. It promises to be a very interesting case study. So without taking up any more time away from ma'am, I would ask her to start her presentation. I do request the participants once again, please remain on mute if you are not talking, especially when another speaker is talking. Also, please keep your questions throughout the session. You can post your questions on chat. We can take them up after ma'am's session, or also you can ask verbally after the session is over, whichever is good with you. Please try and make it an engaging one. With that, over to you, ma'am. I'll stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Thanks. So could you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible. You can go on.
Okay. Yeah, okay, thanks. So as said, my presentation focuses on the International Image Interoperability Framework and the Mirador through the use case of the digital manuscripts collection of the Vatican Library. The IIIF as an interoperability protocol for image resources held in libraries, archives, museums, has produced over 1 billion IIIF compliant images so far. I would like to consider the concreteness of this production and also focus on how this vast production is actually changing not only the use of digital objects online in the context of tools at the convenience of digital humanities, for instance, with the well-known abilities of IIIF viewers such as Mirador, but also the concept of discoverability of the knowledge objects now available via IIIF. Discoverability is the quality of being able to be discovered or found, and in relation to online content, it is the quality of being easy to find via a search engine within an application or on a website. If we focus on the discoverability in the IIIF context, we can refer to two main aspects, which are the requirements that make a web platform a discoverable digital library service in the light of IIIF. How is it possible to discover IIIF compliant content through current web platforms? A first look about the context of the two issues is concerning the non-trivial meaning of libraries, archives, museums, data in the universe of a single domain for an evaluation of their impact on the discoverability of IIIF objects. We thus consider the abstraction of AMM data produced within digital ecosystems, starting from the traditional statement related to the classes of the structured data. In the AMM domain, they include bibliographies, indexing, and abstracting databases, citation indexes, catalogs of all kinds, special collections, portals, metadata repositories, curated research datasets, and named authorities. Structured data are typically held in databases in which all key value pairs have identifiers and clear relations and follow an explicit data model. Semi-structured data in the LAM general context are the unstructured sections within metadata descriptions. For example, the rich content descriptions contained in archival finding aids, table of contents and abstracts of reports in digital repositories, as well as digital finding aids, intellectual works encoding following, for example, the text encoding initiative guidelines, or any unstructured portions of otherwise structured data sets. Unstructured data are characterized as everything else. In LAMs, they can be found in documents and other information-bearing objects, textual or non-textual, digitized or non-digitized, in all kinds of formats. In data resources that are served through LAMs, unstructured data are usually available in the largest quantity in comparison with structured data, have the most diversity in type, nature, and quality, and are the most challenging to process. Now, let's consider the typical elements of the IIIF presentation API, keeping in mind that the IIIF presentation API provides a model for describing digital representations of objects, just enough metadata to drive a remote viewing experience. A presentation API is a format for software, viewing tools, annotation clients, websites, to consume and render the objects and any other associated content in the form of annotations. This doesn't mean that the descriptive metadata has no place in a digital object delivered by the presentation API. Conversely, it is important that the object is accompanied by useful information and links to other descriptions of the object. The presentation API takes great care to ensure that you can accompany your digital objects with rich human readable descriptions with support for multiple languages so that viewers can display that important contextual information to users. It also provides an explicit mechanism for linking to one or more semantic descriptions of the object depicted, as well as related human readable resources. The information pertaining to presentation API is the IIIF manifest of the digital object represented as a thing and enriched with the complex knowledge data related to it. A so-called IIIF manifest contains a descriptive section of the digital object, but the specifications do not define any rules relating to metadata. In other words, we can say that the IIIF requirements are completely agnostic as to which descriptive metadata to apply, as well as to which image formats. The galaxy of data pertaining to the thing represented in the manifest is completely scalable and referable to the different meanings of LAM data, structured, semi-structured, and unstructured we mentioned. Moreover, as for the presentation API, the meaning of any accompanying descriptive metadata for display in a viewer is irrelevant. The API's job is to get the content of the work, for example, the pages of the book, the painting, to a point where a human can interact with it in a logical way, to view it, read it, annotate it, mix it up with other things if they want. A IIIF client can also display any accompanying metadata included as multilingual pairs of labels and values. But that is as far as it goes. It needs no definition or scheme for what that metadata means. It is outside of the scope of the presentation API. The user can view important semantic metadata, but the presentation API is just a conduit for that text. In the presentation API, those strings have no semantic significance. They are not defined in the specification. A client of the API should just render them. If an end user wants to know what they mean, he may look at the link to the scripted metadata that a publisher of IIIF resources provides. In a nutshell, a manifest is what a IIIF viewer loads to display the object. A manifest, here is a manifest, could be used to generate a web page for the object. A manifest could be also loaded into an annotation tool or a IIIF editing environment to be used as source material in the creation of a new manifest. The structure of the manifest also includes the concept of sequence, which is of fundamental importance for aggregated resources, for instance, books, manuscripts, and archive materials composed of page, leaf, folios or sheets, and canvas. Each view of the object, for example, each page, is represented by a canvas. A manifest contains one or more sequences of canvases, but a canvas is not the same as an image. The canvas is an abstraction, a virtual container for content. The concept of canvas may seem like an extra layer of complexity. It's not much more complicated to do it this way, but it is much more flexible and powerful. The canvas keeps the content separate from the conceptual model of the page of the book or the painting or the archival unit. The content can be images, blocks of text, video, links to other resources, and the content can be positioned precisely on the canvas. By including a canvas in a manifest, you provide a space on which users and scholars can annotate content. All association of content with the canvas is done by annotation. The IIIF presentation API, in fact, is built on the Open Annotation Standard, which has now become the W3C Web Annotation Data Model. At its simplest, the Web Annotation Data Model is a formalized way of linking resources together. An annotation is considered to be a set of connected resources, typically including a body and a target, and combines that the body is related to the target. The exact nature of this relationship changes according to the intention of the annotation, but the body is most frequently somehow about the target. This perspective results in a basic model with 3 parts depicted in this slide. The full model supports additional functionality, enabling content to be embedded within the annotation, selecting arbitrary segments of resources, choosing the appropriate representation of a resource, and providing styling hints to help clients render the annotation appropriately. The canvas establishes a stage in which the simplest case, one image per canvas, is straightforward, but more complex cases, more complex and interesting associations of content can be managed. We can argue at this regard that the semantic enrichment process pertaining to the IIIF's vision of LAM objects and data reflects the broader general transformation from document-centric to entity-centric knowledge modeling due to the many relations for each canvas. Let's now go back to consider the discoverability of the IIIF in the light of a presentation API. And the first question, which are the requirements that make a web platform a discoverable digital library service in the light of the IIIF? So, as a response, I would like to focus on this by taking the use case of the Vatican Library as an example. The DVL, the DigiVatlib, is a digital library service. It provides free access to the Vatican Library's digitized collections, manuscripts, incunabula, archival materials, and inventories, as well as graphic materials, coins and medals, printed materials. It is fully based on the International Image Interoperability Framework technology, making digital materials easily accessible and usable. The viewer is able to zoom, browse, and turn pages of JPEG 2000 images, as well as allow scholars to compare digital objects from different IIIF repositories of other digital libraries. Descriptions and bibliographic references from the online catalogs are indexed and linked to digital materials. Each object is equipped with URI for the discovery of IIIF manifests. The guided navigation, faceted searches, leverages metadata elements for narrowing or refining queries. Moreover, I would like to focus on the use case of annotations in the IIIF as part of the 3-year Melon project held between 2016 and 2019 in conjunction with Stanford University Libraries, which produced over 26,000 annotations for a selection of manuscripts chosen in the context of thematic pathways. In this platform, the content of all the annotations is indexed along with the metadata, thus constituting a semantically enriched system that allows scholars to query an integrated search of all the available contents of the resource. The project aimed to demonstrate among the advantages of the IIIF for manuscripts how the annotation level is a fundamental innovation for the study of contents, transcriptions, comments, comparative analysis of texts and images. Thanks to the funds received, the library has implemented the workflow to enrich the digital delivery of these materials by annotating some exemplary manuscripts using Mirador with scholarly analysis in order to tell scholarly narratives that provide interpretation for individual works and illustrate important aspects of the world's pre-print culture. I mentioned Mirador. Mirador is a fully IIIF compatible tool capable of interpreting IIIF APIs. Mirador is an open source image, JavaScript, and HTML5 viewer that delivers high-resolution images in a workspace that enables image annotation and comparison of images from repositories dispersed around the world, starting from compatibility with Image API that specifies a web service returning an image in response to a standard HTTP or HTTPS request. Mirador has been optimized to display resources from repositories that support the International Image Interoperability Framework APIs. It provides a tiling window environment for comparing multiple image-based resources, synchronized structural and visual navigation of content using OpenSeaDragon, open annotation, compliant annotation creation, and viewing on deep zoomable canvases, metadata display, book reading, bookmarking, and more. Mirador is developed as an active open source project that regularly receives contributions from software developers around the world. Several large projects sponsored by peer cultural heritage institutions regularly meet and coordinate the development of new features and releases that benefit not only their individual projects and institutions, but also the community more broadly. Mirador is a powerful window offering a view into the world's more substantial digital collection on international scale. Let's go back now to the Web Thematic Pathways project based on Mirador. The Vatican Library intended to engage the visitor to its website on the possibility for using annotated manuscripts in IIIF according to specific themes by providing tools for discovering and comparing digital materials. The deep analysis of contents of manuscripts entails the understanding of the preprint world in which the manuscript is born. This implies a knowledge pertaining to the history of the manuscript, its origin, provenance, as well as other circumstances of the production of a manuscript, identification of dates, scribes, artists, discussions about the intellectual content, and descriptive discussion on paleographic matters. In its essential lines, a thematic pathways in this project is composed by 3 different kinds of information. A general description, introduction, historical information, etc., of the chosen theme, and in itself it represents the story. The second kind of information is descriptive and structural metadata and the curatorial narratives for each manuscript. Then the third kind of information is about annotations, comments, in-depth analysis about the detailed parts of a manuscript. For example, texts, comments, illuminations, and so on. And also transcriptions of units of information. So I introduced the four thematic pathways. The first one is about courses in paleography, Greek and Latin from antiquity to the Renaissance. The rich collection of manuscripts preserved in the library makes it possible to follow the evolution of the Greek and Latin scripts all the way from antiquity to the Renaissance. A careful selection of images of manuscripts accompanied by transcriptions and comments could be very useful as teaching material for a course in Greek or Latin paleography. The availability of online images of manuscripts, together with the possibility offered by the IIIF APIs, allows a complete transformation of teaching practice in this field. So we can say that this is a canvas. When I explain about what a canvas is in the IIIF model. In this presentation, we have not only an image, but a more complex relation of information. You have a transcription, a grid, made by an artificial intelligence tool. So the preparation of this image with this grid per line, each line with its transcription. This is the first line in the right column, cum e parentibus. Then you can add also, in case, other annotations in this kind of canvas. And in the same canvas, you have the structural metadata. And here, under this button I, you have the descriptive metadata with links that directly goes to the catalog. So this is an idea already of a canvas. So let's go back on these thematic pathways. I told about the availability of online images of the manuscript together with the possibility offered by the IIIF APIs that allows a complete transformation of teaching practice in this field. The explanatory materials, the story which framed this unit, can be thought as a sort of textbook. For each of the sections, I mean the Greek and the Latin, of this thematic path, a set of complete digitized manuscripts chosen to illustrate the phase in the development of the script from the 4th to the 16th century is provided. This is an example of a typical Latin Western script, medieval Western script, the Carolina script. From each manuscript, chosen pages with the paleographical and codicological description and the diplomatic transcription is also made available. So the second thematic pathway we studied is about the evolution and transmission of text of specific works, the Latin classics. The Vatican Library owns one of the most important collections of manuscripts in the world, with texts by classical Latin authors, many of them richly illustrated. The aim of this pathway is to describe 81 manuscripts directly from the original codices, metadata and annotations pertaining to the study of text and illumination have been provided. The work throws light not only on the illustration of the text, but especially on the relationship between text, illuminations, comment, and the gloss. The importance of this project lies in the remarkable variety of typologies of the classical world, from epic, lyric, and elegies to dramatic, philosophical, historic, and declamatory texts. Each manuscript has been selected in order to reconstruct the figurative imagery of the classics from the papyrus style. The illumination are set within the text column, to historiated initials, just like these initials. This is an historiated initials. In addition, these selected manuscripts present particularly interesting textual and historical characteristics because the classical authors continue, even today, to provide paradigmatic images and concepts. Classical authors, in fact, have always received special attention due to their ageless modernity. The third part is about Vatican palimpsests, digital recovery of erased identities. The Vatican Library has identified more than 380 manuscripts in its own collections, which include palimpsest, I mean erased and then recycled parchment folios, recycled in the Middle Ages, I mean. This pathway intends to present this rich and scarcely explored material to the public by making an in-depth archaeological research on the palimpsest of the 24 select manuscripts and recover their lost identity with the help of IIIF technology. Making accessible, hardly legible images to the public is a challenging task because the actual method of publication has been designed to typical objects. Thus, publishing online atypical objects require creative solutions and improvements of the actual routine. By the pathway, digital reconstructions makes 4 palimpsests accessible both by their upper and lower scripts. This is a lower script, this is an upper script. A condition which the actual conservation of these manuscripts and the normal method of publication do not allow. These manuscripts include, for example, the only surviving text of Cicero's Republic, 4th, 5th century, and the earliest but so far neglected manuscript, 9th century, of Philo of Alexandria, who combined Greek and Jewish philosophy in Augustus' time. The lost identity of the select manuscripts cover the history of Latin and Greek scripts from the 4th, 5th century and embrace a wide range of cultural contexts before the 12th century, mostly of the Byzantine world, and shed light on the history of textual scholarship with them. Erased texts are often very old and significant witnesses of a lost past, but they are difficult to access for the naked eye. They need an expert interpreter and highly spatial photographic and post-processing technologies, and especially the flexibility of presentation offered by IIIF APIs, which can turn erased text more accessible online than in their physical existence. By doing so, the Pathways creates an innovative method of presenting palimpsests of the Vatican Library compared to the actual routine of digital presentation of Vatican manuscripts and to the online presentation of the palimpsests elsewhere. Another very different theme is the last part about the Humanist Prince's libraries, the Federico da Montefeltro and his manuscripts. The library of Federico da Montefeltro, Duke of Urbino, since 1474, is known as a typical humanist collection. Well-represented sector includes scripture, patristics, theology, classics, contemporary technical and scientific works, and contemporary literature. The most common language is Latin, but Greek and Hebrew are also represented. The collection was outstanding not only for its substance, the amount of volumes, as well as the quality in relation with other libraries of that age, but for the value of each manuscript, partially acquired from antique market, many commissioned by Federico, and realized by refined copyists and greater artists of that time. The manuscripts were produced in two main locations, Florence and Urbino. In the first years, Federico preferred to buy or order manuscripts in Florence, both in writing and in illumination. Later, he preferred Ferrara or Padon artists and scribes active in Urbino. This pathway points out the characteristics of two schools, very different in style, and the most important artists, half of the chosen manuscripts is representative of the Florentine school, while the other half of the Ferrara and Padon schools. Here, as you can see, an annotation is also about a spine, the spine label. In this spine, there is an important reference of an old inventory, very interesting for the history of this collection. So, I mentioned that this is based on Mirador. Here you can see a comparison in Mirador. Again on Mirador. So Mirador development for this project has contributed to and benefited from this community development effort. Throughout the course of this project, Stanford's technical team has actively engaged in Mirador's community-based development process. This has ensured development work for the Vatican Library dovetails with enhancements planned by other parties, and that feature for the libraries has been integrated into the core code base and correspondingly maintained by the community extensively, and an important sustainability strategy. For example, this, a contribution from our project, the Polygonal Annotation. Before our project, the annotation in Mirador were made by only regular shape, just like a square, a circle, and so on. So the Polygonal Annotation are among our contribution. And as well as, this is another, for example, for instance, irregular shape, as well as what we call enclaves of annotation. So in this canvas, you have not only an annotation, but three annotations, one just like the Russian puppets. So it was not so evident to consider in the codes of Mirador, but finally it was realized. For the purpose of the thematic pathways project, the Mirador functionality has been enhanced to support better scholarly markup. These are features for creating and editing annotations during the scholarly analysis of the project manuscript have been grouped into extensions of annotation creation capabilities and extensions of user ability to work effectively with the body of annotation once they have been created. For the extension of annotation creation capabilities, specific areas of development has included For example, the ability to create right to left, left to right, vertical and multi-directional annotations in order to respond to various linguistic and layout needs in the corpus of manuscript to be analyzed. Support for left to right, right to left, and vertical navigation of manuscript materials in viewing windows of Mirador. Again, a stable platform for the creation of annotation on complex regions of interest, a stable platform for the editing and deleting of existing annotations, the ability to credit an author or group of authors for each annotation, ability to provide layout formats within the body of an annotation to support footnotes and bibliographical citations. And last but not least, support for all Unicode characters in the body of the annotations. The described and annotation manuscript presented in Mirador within each of the thematic pathways are published online as an exhibit in the spotlight that your direction mentioned and that we use. So what Spotlight is, already explained. Again, Spotlight is an open source software that enables librarians, curators, and other content experts to easily build a feature-rich website that showcases collection and objects from a digital repository, uploaded items, or a combination of the two. Spotlight exhibit can be created by librarians, curators, and others who are not web developers. And I can assure you that this is true, because all the projects were performed by our curators, so not or catalogers, so not IT people. Above all, it can contain embedded Mirador instances that give user access through Mirador to a rich body of annotations. For example, this is a list of result of annotations coming from Mirador, coming from this canvas, but indexed by Solar in Spotlight. Annotations are also classified using tags for the classification of topics and the identification of personal names, such as scribes, illuminators, and places, such as for the provenances. Tags are available as authority lists in Mirador for each thematic pathway, and then indexed and searchable in Spotlight. We have identified over 900 tags pertaining to topics, while names, personal and geographic names, are established according to the authority files of the Vatican Library. In some cases, we have also identified hierarchical relations of tags, such as themes related to illuminations to display as hierarchical facets. Tags are available in English translations, being part of facets and index in Spotlight. Finally, I would like to mention the current work of the Mirador community. I'm referring to the implementation of Mirador 3. Mirador 3 has a highly configurable, flexible next generation version of the interactive IIIF image viewer, capable of enhanced full text annotations, annotation attributes, such as tags, author, motivation, story-oriented annotations, in which annotations drive the navigation within and across canvases, related to digital objects to be read right to left as well, left to right, and multi-scripts metadata. This shows that the revolution of the image-based resources is not yet over, and new challenges for the growing IIIF community are still ongoing. As said, IIIF enables the creation of rich digital content collections that bring together content distributed among cultural heritage institutions. With image viewers, one is able to analyze works held in physically different locations side by side or overlaid with web browser. However, in order to take advantage of the research tool afforded by IIIF, a user must be able to find IIIF resources. Interoperable objects are of no use if one cannot find them, particularly if relevant objects reside in servers in many different institutions. Discovery, in this case, means human searching, browsing and finding of IIIF resources across institutions. To be successful, IIIF discovery must be user-focused and meet defined users' concrete needs. So, in the end, how is it possible to discover IIIF compliant content through current web platform, which is the question, the thread underlying this talk? So I think my time is over. So thank you for your attention. Thank you to the Geo Institute for inviting me.